What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, there's suddenly a small path for UNLV to join a power conference. Plus, Mountain West might end up paying UNLV even more money. So there is a bill that potentially is going to get passed by Congress that's going to save college sports from nobody really knows what it needs saving from. But part of that, as we've talked about on this show, is the potential freezing of power conferences where they would not be able to admit new members to the conference. The general idea of that being in place would be so that the SEC and Big Ten can't poach off ACC or Big 12 teams and effectively kill another conference, which is what happened to the Pac-12. Prevent the Pac-12 dying from happening to the Big 12 or the ACC. However, I guess the way it was written, it was going to prevent any team that's not in a power conference from actually getting into a power conference. Ross Dellinger, who covers college sports for Yahoo, has had a couple of stories, some reporting on this. They're going to adjust that. That is not going to be the case going forward. A senator from Washington said that it's going to be changed so that a group of 6 team would be able to make that jump up to a power conference. Notable that the senators from Washington, because Washington State exists and they're one of the teams that got left behind in the Pac-12 when the Pac-12 effectively died and then came back to life. It's a pretty obvious correction. It's a good one if you're a team like UNLV, because their goal is to get into a power conference. And if the bill had passed the way it was written before, it wasn't going to be allowed, right? It's just going to be illegal. Now, there's also a potential addition. Right. That one's from a senator. That's a senator saying, hey, we're going to change this. So that seems to be like, yep, that's going to happen. The other change appears to just be a proposal. And it's again from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. And this is a proposal from the SEC and the Big Ten. And 2 key details here. One, it would cap conference membership at 19 schools. So you could not have a 20-team conference. You could get to 19, but then you have to stop there. Also, any school that moves from one power conference to another power conference has to go independent for 5 years. I'm a little confused on that. I don't understand how that would work. Like you say, hey, I'm breaking up with the ACC, I'm going to the SEC, and you just have to live on your own for 5 years. A very weird proposal there, but that's apparently a proposal from the SEC and the Big Ten. I don't understand why they would do that, because it's not like they're afraid that their schools are going to get poached to the Big 12 or the ACCs. They're the ones doing the poaching. So I'm not sure why the SEC and Big 12 would propose that. It seems like a good thing for the ACC. It seems like a good thing for the Big 12. Because if you're the ACC and you're worried about Miami or Florida State or Clemson leaving, and their drawback is, they have to go independent for 5 years, I don't think they're going to do it. So that would be a good thing for the ACC, but this is the SEC and Big Ten proposing it. So very strange that they would put that in. It is notable, by the way, that Notre Dame is not in a power conference. It is notable that the cap would be 19 teams, while the Big Ten has 18 teams. So it does seem that those rules set it up for, hey, Notre Dame can join the Big Ten, and we're good to go. The independent thing makes it less likely the ACC schools leave, but it would be a good thing for the Big Ten if they were to add Notre Dame, and this would still allow it to happen. Now, the cap on 19 is what's interesting for a UNLV level school, right? The rest of that is about power conference teams moving between power conferences, which is mostly irrelevant to UNLV. Technically, it could open a door somewhere, but the way it works out is it means there's only so many spots. There's only 36, right? Sorry, I can't do math. There's only 19 per conference. So you're not going to be able, it's 76, you're not going to be able to get into a power conference if all of them get up to 19 schools. So what it means is if they put in this cap at 19. What it means is that the ACC can add 2 more teams, the Big 12 can add 3 more teams, the SEC can add 3 more, and the Big 10 can add 1 more, right? If it's capped at 19, that means there's 8 spots remaining, 9 spots remaining. I still can't do math. I'm even questioning if I did that right. 9 spots remaining. And in reality, the ACC and Big 12 are the only ones that would potentially add a UNLV level team, right? The SEC and Big 10 are not adding UNLV. UNLV's only hope is to get into the Big 12 or the ACC. And honestly, it's probably only the Big 12, but the ACC does have teams in California, so maybe. But that means there's 5 spots left for UNLV and the other group of 6 teams. So first question for you, is UNLV one of the 5 most likely group of 6 teams to get an invite to the Big 12 or the ACC? You have Oregon State and Washington State. Are they necessarily better than UNLV? No. Is UNLV better than them? Probably not. I wonder, would there be some pity towards Oregon State and Washington State if the Big 12 or whoever were to expand and say, all right, you guys got really screwed over. Come on in. Possibly. And then other Pac-12 schools that could go, obviously Boise State, San Diego State, they were trying to leave the Mountain West forever and finally did. And Colorado State has some appeal as well. In the American, you have Memphis, tried to buy their way in and got told no, but they're clearly one of the best options. South Florida, decent option, and Tulane in New Orleans, a decent option. And then UNLV's the only Mountain West school. I don't think there's anybody else in the Mountain West that would have a realistic chance at getting an invite to one of those. So those, I think, are your 9 schools that would have a realistic chance of going from group of 6 up to a power conference. Is UNLV one of those 5 best? I think you could argue they are, and I think you could argue they aren't. I don't think there's a clear, like, yep, these are the top 5 and these are the next 4. I don't even know that you could come to a consensus on who the top 1 is, right? I mean, who is the best of those? Because if you're just going for football on field, it's Boise State. But we know from conference realignment, that's not the only thing that matters. And Boise as a market is not as good as San Diego. It's not as good as Las Vegas. It's not as good as New Orleans or Memphis or Tampa, right? In fact, it's the worst of all of these options. Maybe Oregon State and Washington State, not as good. Who cares about Corvallis, right? But like market-wise, Boise State's not in a great position. If they were in a better market, they'd probably already be in the Big 12. But on field, Boise State's clearly the best of this group. If you want a California team, obviously San Diego State stands out there. If the Big 12 was like, we need to keep it more regional and not spread out as much, Colorado State is right there, but that's also probably a negative because they already have Colorado. Do they care? So like, depending on what these other conferences want, UNLV might be let's get to Las Vegas. We want to be in Las Vegas more than any of these other cities, and they look decent enough at football right now. Let's add them. You can make a pretty easy argument for UNLV's in the top 5, but I don't think it's an easy top 5 because you could very easily, very, very easily, right? The ACC could say something like, we're going to add Memphis and South Florida. We're at 19. The Big 12 says, you know what? We feel bad. We're going to add Oregon State and Washington State so they're not left out, and we're going to take Boise State as the best football playing team, and that's it. Those 2 conferences get to 19 and they're done. That could happen. So I don't know that it's clear that UNLV's in the top 5 of the group of 6 options. Now, the other important note here, 19 is the maximum. It's not the minimum. These conferences don't have to add to get to 19. And by the way, this is all just a proposal. It's not even in the bill that hasn't even been passed into law. So none of it might matter at all. But like, if it does, it's a maximum. The Big 12 doesn't have to go to 19. They just can go to 19. So I'm sitting here telling you there's so many spots left and the Big 12 can add 3 more. They might not want to. They might say, no, we're good where we are. We don't need to add any more teams, which is what they've effectively already said, right? I think that's the important thing here. They've effectively already told us this, that they don't want more teams. Because if they wanted Boise State, Boise State would be in the Big 12 and not the Pac-12. They wanted UNLV, UNLV would be in the Big 12 and not the Mountain West. If anybody wanted Oregon State and Washington State, they wouldn't have been left behind to rebuild a conference from the dead. And that's still where I come back to on any conference realignment for UNLV and the rest of the Mountain West, Pac-12, American, all that. You'd probably already be in. You probably would already be in. Memphis tried to buy their way in, and it didn't happen. The Big 12 wouldn't take their money. So I just don't think these programs are getting in unless something seismic happens at the top. And if that happens, then the ACC or Big 12 might not even be power conferences anymore, right? Like in theory, the ACC could have to add more than just two if Clemson, Miami, Florida State, and like North Carolina all left for the SEC, right? I'll put the SEC over the 19 mark and all that. But, in theory, if these conferences just cannibalized each other, but then, okay, cool, you're in the ACC or the Big 12, but it's no longer a power conference. It just looks like a good group of six conference, exactly what happened to the Pac-12. So, yeah, I still don't think it's happening for UNLV or really any of these schools in the near future that they end up in a power conference. Now, Mountain West Media Days were last week. A couple of interesting things. I think the most interesting thing was the idea that Gloria Nevarez floated about unequal revenue sharing. And Nevada Sportsnet had a story on this, but the normal way that conferences distribute money is whether it's TV money, whether it's from wins in the NCAA tournament, whether it's from, bowl payouts or college football playoff payouts, whatever it is. Normally that money sort of gets split up evenly and paid out to all the conference members. Well, Gloria Nevarez said the Mountain West is considering having a merit-based revenue distribution. She said that it was, the word she used or phrase she used was beta phase. But basically, they could have a bonus system that rewards how good your teams are. So instead of, hey, every team gets $4 million in TV money, instead, hey, every team gets $3 million, and we're going to take that extra million that would have went to every other team, roughly $10 million, and we're going to distribute that $10 million based on who was actually good. UNLV should love this idea. UNLV should be one of the better teams in the conference on a regular basis. They're spending more money on their coaches. They're generally spending more money on their players and everything to do with football and men's basketball. They should be one of the better teams in the conference on a regular basis. They're one of the better brands. They're one of the most valuable athletic departments. There's a reason that the Mountain West desperately wanted to keep them. We've already seen the Mountain West give UNLV and Air Force more money than the rest of the schools with this payouts from the Mountain West, from the Pac-12 poaching, right? This is the same idea, just on a regular basis. And I've said plenty of times, from a money standpoint, UNLV staying in the Mountain West, I think it will hurt them in the long run because the Pac-12 will have bigger conference payouts that eventually overtake that lump sum of $15 million, whatever it is, the UNLV is going to get from the Mountain West. But if there is unequal distribution, it's possible UNLV makes as much each year as the Pac-12 teams do. If you're the best team in the conference, and it depends on how much they decide to split up unequally, then UNLV could end up making a lot more than Wyoming or Air Force or whoever's bad in the conference, right? So this could be a good thing for UNLV where you actually make a decent chunk of money, comparatively speaking, to the Pac-12 and everybody else, because you're better than the rest of the conference. Now, again, it depends on you winning and everything, right? If they put this in and all of a sudden UNLV's winning 3 football games a year and the basketball team just still can't go to the NCAA tournament, this is bad because you're going to make even less money than the Pac-12 and your Mountain West counterparts. But win some games and you'll be just fine. So that could be good news for UNLV. I think that's something UNLV should be pushing for. The other thing interesting from Gloria Nevarez at Mountain West Media Days was talking about expansion. She said, we've been open to 12. That's where we've been in the past. However, we don't want to add to just add. We're not actively looking right now, but we're always open to thinking about if there's another school that can fit that makes sense for us. Right now, the Mountain West has 10 football playing teams. And I think Navarez is right in that 12 is a number they should be open to, and going over 12 is stupid. um, the ACC is a great example, by the way. They have 17 teams. You can't have an even conference schedule. With 17 teams, the math doesn't work. Not everybody can play the same amount of conference games. So some teams this year are playing 9 conference games in the ACC. Some are only playing 8. It's incredibly, incredibly dumb. So don't get too big. But the more realistic part of Navarez's quote is about schools making sense. There's basically 2 ways a program can make sense to the current Mountain West. Do you bring in money as a valuable television brand? Basically, does CBS Sports say, oh, yeah, we'll pay you more if you add that program? Or do you help the Mountain West make the college football playoff? Those are the 2 things, right? Maybe you're good enough to make it, or you're just good enough that you at least boost sort of the strength of schedule of all the other programs, stuff like that. Yeah, college basketball, the NCAA tournament matters a little bit, but not that much. You're not adding a program just because, oh, they could make the NCAA tournament for us. So the question is, does anybody fit either of those? Is there a valuable brand out there that CBS Sports would care about? Is there a program out there that you're like, yeah, they could make a run at the playoff? The Mountain West has already added programs that don't fit those. Northern Illinois and UTEP coming in, they're going to be 2 of the worst teams in the country this year in college football. And neither has like a noteworthy fan base or television poll that anybody cares about, right? North Dakota State's interesting because they've really good at the FCS level. In theory, they can be the next James Madison type and go FCS to FBS and have success and have it quickly. So they're interesting in that regard, and I think that's why they're potentially the best addition of any school the Mountain West added after they lost a bunch of teams to the Pac-12, because there's a chance they're in the college football playoff, right? I mean, that's not the most far-fetched thing to say. In the next 5 years, North Dakota State could play in the college football playoff. That's a possible thing. I don't think that's happening for UTEP in Northern Illinois. Does North Dakota State bring you a fan base? Not one that television networks are going to care about. But they could make you better and give your conference a better chance to put a team in the playoff, which is very important. But right now, who else could they add? Right? Like, is New Mexico State doing anything for you? Do you go back to FCS and say, what, the Montana schools have been good, or South Dakota State? It just feels like there's no option, and the Mountain West shouldn't want to expand at all. I'm not even sure NIU and UTEP are positives. You sort of need warm bodies, but I'm not even sure those are going to be positives. I don't know if it would have been better to just add the Montana schools instead of those 2, because who's got a bigger fan base? I don't think NIU and UTEP really make that big of a dent in anything. So we'll see where the Mountain West ends up. We'll see how that actually plays out, but I'd be surprised if they expand just because not much actually makes sense. A couple of things from Mountain West Media Day week. First off, it is possible that the champion of the Mountain West plays in the Boca Raton Bowl in Florida. So apparently the way the bowl process is going to work for the Mountain West this year is ESPN will decide where the Mountain West teams play. ESPN runs most of the bowls anyways. But there are a group of bowl games that ESPN will pick from to send the top Mountain West team. And it's the Boca Raton Bowl, the Puerto Rico Bowl, the Armed Forces Bowl, the Frisco Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl, and the Idaho Bowl. So the Mountain West champ could go to the Boca Raton Bowl in Florida. Would be surprising, but it is possible. Sending a team that probably won't have a traveling fan base all the way to Florida, probably not a good idea. But the real annoyance in all of this, these bowls suck. They suck, right? Like, take UNLV's potential season. Team could win the Mountain West, miss the playoff. It might be a likely outcome. That might be the most common outcome of the whole season. Win the conference, but you don't make the playoff because Boise State went or something like that. And then your reward is a bowl game. And what are you going to? Which of those do you prefer? They just played in the Frisco Bowl. It was in the Cowboys practice facility. You want to go to New Mexico? You want to go to Idaho? The Armed Forces Bowl? Puerto Rico, I guess, sounds the most fun, right? Like, those all suck. And you look at UNLV's last few seasons, right? They haven't even won the Mountain West, but they played in Phoenix against a Big 12 team in Kansas, right? Like, that was hey, you get to test yourself against a power conference team. And then they played in the LA Bowl against Cal, another power conference team. And I know these aren't like the best of the best power conference teams, but at least you're playing a power conference team. And then last year was similar to what we're going to see in the future, the Frisco Bowl against an 8-4 team from the MAC in Ohio. That sucks. That sucks. You're the second best team in the Mountain West, and you get to play an 8-4 Ohio in the Cowboys practice facility or whatever that building was. Yeah, the bowl games suck. And listen, I know I'm a fan of the playoff expanded playoff and expanding it even more, and it makes the bowl games less important. So this is the side effect of that is that you're going to have UNLV have a 9-win season and they go play a team that absolutely no one cares about in a bowl game. I know that a big part of that is because of the playoff, and I'm fine with that, but I'm still going to complain about it. Yeah, I'm here to complain. That's what we do around here. And then the last thing for Mountain West Media Days, just to finish complaining. That's not a lie. There's more minutes in this episode, so you know this isn't the last bit of complaining. But about the Mountain West, they didn't release a predicted order of finish for the football teams because they didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. If you're unaware, every media day, the conference puts out a list of, hey, this is who was picked to finish first, second, third, all the way down to last. And it's either the coaches do it, the media does it, or a combination of the two. And the Mountain West did nothing for this one. And here's the thing that's stupid about it. The whole point of media days is to get media attention. It's in the name. The whole point of doing a media day is to get media attention. And one of the easiest, one of the most fun ways to do it is to put out your predicted order of finish. Hey, this is who the coaches think are going to win the conference. 1 through 10, 12, 19, however many damn teams in your conference, right? And it gives, it's content. It's content right there for people to talk about your conference. And then during the season, it's also fun when the team picked to finish 9th is in second place, and you're like, these moron coaches or these moron media members, you thought this team was going to suck, and actually they're good. And they didn't do it. Why? It's not even like a difficult thing. They didn't do it because they just don't want to hurt people's feelings. It's stupid. It's unbelievably stupid. I'll tell you this. This is a while ago, but Mountain West women's basketball, at one point they were doing into the season, first team All Mountain West, second team All Mountain West, third team All Mountain West, and honorable mentions, I believe. They stopped doing that at one point because people on the third team had their feelings hurt. I don't know. And they replaced it with just an All Mountain West team. Wasn't first, second, or third, just an All Mountain West team. And it was only 10 players. So they got rid of the amount of players that were getting some sort of recognition at the end of the year because some people had their feelings hurt because they weren't on the first team. Unbelievably stupid. The dumbest thing I've ever seen. And now the Mountain West is apparently topped it. So yeah, Mountain West Media Days, give us an predicted order of finish. It's way more fun that way. Now, couple more things on today's show. We're going to UNLV basketball because BYU and UNLV will play each other in basketball in Vegas, but it's a preseason game. October 24th, they're going to play an exhibition in Vegas. Almost awesome. Almost, because BYU UNLV in an actual regular season game, do a home and home, would be fun. Right? Like this is a matchup that should happen. Maybe not every year. Like it's not one where, like, I feel like they should play San Diego State every single year. You don't have to play BYU every single year, but this should happen more regularly. Like BYU should be on the schedule 50% of the time for UNLV, and they should be doing home and homes where BYU comes to the Thomas and Mack. Right? Like that is fun. Those are the types of games that I want to see UNLV play in. Is fun games. And generally speaking, playing BYU should be helpful for UNLV with its resume and how good BYU is. They're not amazing. They're beatable, but they're also not going to hurt your metrics, and they should be a quality win most years. I do get it. If you're BYU and you look at UNLV over the last decade, you're probably like, man, what good does this do us? Not that much. Okay, we don't need to play UNLV anymore. But I think it'd be fun. So let's make it happen more than an exhibition. And last thing on UNLV basketball, Mustafa Loom has signed with UNLV. He is the 6'10" transfer from Northwestern State, who as a freshman played in 21 games last year, 11 minutes per game, 2.5 points per game. It appears to be size for the sake of size. Maybe could be fun. Maybe there's some more use there out of Loom than just, hey, that guy's big. But UNLV has added to their roster. He had announced it on, I can't remember if it was Twitter or Instagram. He had announced it on social media like 3 weeks ago, but UNLV officially announced him as a signing on Monday. So UNLV has another basketball player. And that is it for Technically Correct. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you later this week.